Blog for the Blood God.
How you going, guys? Dean from Blog for the Blood God here. I've got Dirk with me tonight, and we're going to do our very first 8th edition 40k battle report. So I'll run you through my list first, and then Dirk will run you through his. We're both doing battalion detachments, where you basically get your 2 mandatory HQ, 3 mandatory troops, and then the rest is sort of whatever. And we both get 3 command points. Plus you get 3 command points for being battle forged. So we both have access to up to 6. So for mine, I've got a Chaos Lord, Terminator armor. He's got a Chain Fist and a Combi Bolter, I believe, on a Combi Plasma. Then I've got a unit of 5 Terminators. One of them's got a Chain Fist and a Reaper autocannon. Then the other 4 have Combi Plasma and Power Mauls. I've got a Winged Demon Prince with a pair of fucking Talons. Fuck, I'm not going to know what anything's called. Anyway, Claws. I've got a unit of... Axe too, doesn't he? Or no, he's no axe. He's got a pair of Claws. Then I've got a unit of 8 Berserkers, all with chain swords and chain axes. So no pistols, just all close combat weapons. I've got a unit there of 6 Blood Crushers with a Icon of Wrath, which essentially allows them when they're charging, they get to reroll. Oh no, it's +1 to charge and advance moves. Unit of Cultists, they're just stock standard. Big 20-man blob of Bloodletters, that's 1 unit of 20. 2 Mauler Fiends, both with Flasher Tendrils. And 3 Mutilators in the back there. So that's my entire list. So it comes in at 1850 points. And I'll hand the camera over to Dirk and he'll run you through his.
Alright, Dirk here. I've got my Tower Force here. So I've got the Commander. It's Cold Star, so he's basically a flying guy, but without the flying special rule. He's got high output burst cannon, missile pod, advanced targeting system. Then I've got a Fireblade. He's got a Marker Light. Then I've got Troop Choice Strike Team. They look like breaches, but they've got rifles. So I've got 10 of those, 10 of those, and then 12 Crew. Then in Fast Attack, I've got 2 Pathfinder teams, exactly the same. 5 guys, 5 Marker Lights, and then they've both got a Pulse Accelerator drone, which increases my Pulse rifles range by 6 inches. And then I've got a Ghost Keel. He's got the Fusion Collider, 2 Fusion blasters, the 2 drones, target lock, counterfire defense. Then I've got a Riptide, which is the heavy burst cannon, 2 SMS, so smart missile systems, target lock, advanced targeting system. Then we've got 3 crisis suits, which have got 6 plasma rifles and 3 multi-trackers. And heavy support, I've got 2 broadsides, that's 1 unit, which has got, so I've got 4 smart missiles, so 2 on each, and then 2 high yield missile pods on each. And they've both got advanced targeting system. And then I've got a Sky Ray, which has got smart missiles, the Seeker missiles, and 2 Marker Lights. Advanced targeting system gives +1 to rend, which is pretty cool. Alright.
Alrighty, so for the mission, we've taken one of the rulebook missions out of the new rulebook, which is Retrieval Mission. So basically, at the start, you roll off to see who goes first. That person places 1 objective marker, then the opponent places number 2, you place number 3, and then you place number 4. So there's 4 objective markers. They have to be 6 inches away from an edge and 12 inches away from each other, so similar to what we're used to. But what's different is the person who places the last objective... No, the person who places the first objective, sorry, because it was...
No, the person who places the last objective.
Okay, I was right. Yep, I was right the first time. The person who places the last objective then gets to choose the deployment type and their deployment zone. So I won the roll-off, so I placed first, which meant Dirk got to place the last objective down, and then he gets to choose the deployment type. So he chose hammer and anvil, and then he also gets to choose which zone he wants to deploy in. So that was really different from what we're used to in 7th edition. I really fucking liked it. It was refreshing. So that's the mission, and then basically each one of those is worth 3 victory points at the end of the game if you hold it. And to hold it, you have to have more models near the objective marker than your opponent. So not units, models. So it's going to be interesting. But we're going to jump over into the deployment now, and we'll be right back. Alright, so we're just getting into our deployment. Different thing with 8th edition is that you alternate unit by unit. So Dirk's won the roll-off, so he's going to place his first unit down. And then I'm going to place mine, which I'm going to place my Terminators in Deep Strike reserves. So they've been deployed into reserves. And now you have to place another unit. I think this
I'm going to place my crisis suits in reserve.
Well, 2 can play that game. I'm going to place my mutilators into reserves.
You'll probably find that this isn't even a thing.
What do you mean?
Bet you look at later on and you can't even do that.
No, it specifically says when deploying the yeah, it does. So I think that strategy is going to be really big. Is people are going to take a lot of things that can go into reserve to force your opponent to have to deploy more of their army before you deploy yours. Now remember, Dirk, there's no blast weapons, so you don't have to spread out if you don't want to.
They're my meat shield.
Okay.
Everybody loves a bit of crew.
Yep. Done?
Yep.
I'm going to put my Lord Terminator armor in reserves.
For fuck's sake, how many reserves have you got?
A couple. That being said, you can only deploy half of your
Models or points?
units.
Alright. Yeah, I've got one. Next one.
Was that just a drone?
No, that's my command.
Oh,
Fireblade.
Alright, so now we get into the more interesting stuff.
I already don't like deployment.
Cultists. I love it. Cultists for the win. They're just going to go into this piece of terrain here. But that's so liberating, not having to spread out, not being like, oh fuck, he's got a blast weapon.
Yeah.
Just go.
The deep strike is 9 inches away.
9 inches away with no scatter. Ah, that's a clever strategy.
I don't want you fucking coming around the side.
God damn it. Oh shit. You just made Dan pee a little. Alright.
What are all these little nigglets?
Niglet. Done. Over to you.
I'm going to infiltrate him so he deploys after.
Yep. Love those for days. I'm going to chuck us those last couple of levels.
Is there first blood?
We'll double check that in a second. I think there might be.
That is liberating.
It's amazing. Can you imagine like fucking blast weapon onto that?
8th ed deployment. 0 fucks given.
I think the movement trays are back. Hordes are back, and therefore movement trays are back.
Yep.
Crushers are gonna go. Battle 10 cannon each your heart out.
I do apologise, one fire warrior fell off his base, so I've just got a base.
Active camouflage.
Yep.
Stealth suit. I wonder who's got more bodies. Probably you.
I don't know, you got 20 blob. Oh, might be pretty even.
You got more than him.
You reckon I've got more? Yeah, it's 20, 30, 40, 36 or something like that.
Yep.
In there. Without barrel of monkey in there. So that's me done for deployment now. And since I finished deployment first, that means I automatically get first turn. So a solid strategy is going to be make sure you have like fewer units in your army, because the fewer the units you have, the more chance you have of going first. But obviously, you know, coming from an edition of MSU, we all know that having a fewer units hurts.
Fromage.
Fromage.
French for cheese.
Ah. Like how people already still think Tau and Eldar are the two cheesiest factions. It's like, fucking, give them a minute.
Opponent's deployment zone,
Okay.
which is kind of shit.
So run us through how's
So
it
it's-
work out?
Well, off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure it's 12 inches away from an enemy unit.
Yep.
We're still recording?
Yeah.
Yeah, 12 inches away from an enemy unit, but not in your deployment zone. Not in your opponent's deployment zone.
Okay. That's interesting.
But I guess it's a benefit that I was able to
Hold him till
hold
last.
him kind of
Yeah.
thing, like
Yeah.
until the end. Kind of like Deep Strike.
Yeah, I'd say an interesting combo could be if you combine Deep Strike and Infiltrate, and that way you could sort of hold your entire army off, perhaps.
Well, Tau's got a homing beacon which gives you land within like the old, pretty much the old way it worked, but nobody scatters in Deep Strike anymore, so I don't really see the point of it.
Interesting. Alright, chuck down your ghost kill and then roll to seize the initiative.
Is that still a thing?
That is indeed still a thing.
Alright.
You ready to seize?
I'll give it a go. Still on a 6?
Yep. Nope. That's a 1. Alright, I'm going to jump into my turn 1 and we'll come back with a summary at the end. Alrighty guys. Alrighty guys, so we've got turn 1. Terminators have deep striked in, or deep struck in here. They're about to fire all of their plasmas at these broadsides. And I've decided, because it's 8th edition and it's new, I'm going to supercharge them. So any rolls of a 1 to hit will kill a Terminator. And they get 2 shots each, so 10 shots. We're looking for no 1s.
One guy's dead.
So we got 1 casualty from that.
And you're hitting on 4s.
But yeah, hitting on 4s because I fired both profiles. So
5 hits.
5 hits. I'm happy with that. So 1 Terminator dies. Whop. Alrighty guys, so we've just finished my turn 1. And I have to say that the Terminators, they made their charge, but it was very lackluster. So I rolled their charge range and I rolled like a 4, but I gave them an icon that allows me to reroll. So I rerolled that and rolled a 12, which allowed them to then charge in and engage these 3 units. So the suits down there, the broadsides, and the commander. But I failed to do any damage because they don't get plus attacks on the charge or anything cool like that anymore. It's just charging in 2 attacks each. Pretty much completely whiffed. Then one of these little fucking dudes managed to put a wound on one of my Terminators, which was fucking lame. The Lord failed his charge. The Mutilators over there failed their charge, and one of them died to Overwatch. And yeah, pretty much everything else just advanced.
And you used 2 rerolls.
And yeah, I used 2 stratagems. So I used one of them to attempt to reroll one of the dice on the Lord's charge.
Potato nigga.
In the charge phase. And then in the fight phase, I used one to reroll one of their hits with a chain fist guy, hoping to drop one of those, or at least put some wounds on the motherfucker. But no luck. So we're going to jump into Tau turn 2. No, 1. Fuck. This has been a very slow game.
Alright, so that's the end of the Tau turn. My commander was next to the Fireblade. He activated the rule Koyon, which gives everybody within 6 inches of him reroll to hit. So broadside, if they don't move. So the broadsides and the fire warriors jumped out of combat with the Terminators, so they didn't get it. But it allowed me to open fire with basically everything else into the Terminators, which were extremely tough to bring down. 2 up armor, being in a little bit of cover, and having 2 wounds apiece. My Crisis Suits deep strike in with the plasma weapons, took a few wounds off. What else fired into them? Fire Warriors, Kroot, my commander, and that was it, I think, that fired into them.
Yeah.
Then in my turn, I activated my Nova Reactor on my Riptide, which I lose a mortal wound, which gives him the buffs of whatever I can choose, the extra shots with the heavy burst cannon, a thrust move, or a 3-up invuln. I went for the more shots, fired my smart missiles from the Skyray and the Riptide, fired into the Bloodletters, caused 7 wounds. They've only got a leadership of 7, so they lost another 5.
Yeah, correct.
Ghost Kill took out one of the... What are they called again? Mutilators. We forgot, I tried to fire my Skyray, which causes mortal wounds into his flying demon prince, or just demon prince. But we forgot about the closest character rules. So we had to put the mortal wounds on the Mauler Fiend, which is still at full strength. If I take 1 more wound off, it'll slow down slightly. I think that's everything.
Yep.
We'll go into turn 2.
Hey guys, here we have the end of the Khorne turn 2.
Yeah.
So we had the Khorne Berserkers moved up. They advanced a further 6 inches, so that was a nice, good 6-inch roll. Then we had pretty much everything over here made their charge range. So I charged into the Kroot and mopped all of them up, and also charged into some Pathfinders and some Fire Warriors over here and killed most of that as well. A few interesting tidbits from the assault phase was that you basically, when you consolidate at the end, you have to consolidate towards the nearest enemy model. So interestingly, that pulled my Bloodletters away from the combat because they've now had to pile in towards this Ghost Keel. But also, you can consolidate to end within 1 inch of an enemy unit, which then means in their turn, they would have to fall back. So I was able to kill off all of those Kroot that he had screening him, and then consolidate through into the units behind. So if you're running a gun line, you probably want to spread out so that you've got at least 3 inches between each unit, so that your opponent can't consolidate through. But at the same time, if you're running a close combat army, you want to try and, incentivize your opponent to bunch up as best they can, so that they can't, spread out. this was a much more successful combat. Like I did there was so many wounds. The Juggernauts did fucking crazy amounts of wounds because they get 6 attacks each on the charge. Because they get 3 with the rider and 3 with the actual Juggernaut itself. The Mauler Fiends did pretty good. The Lasher Tendrils giving extra attacks, extra D6 attacks is pretty cool. The Lord didn't get to strike because by the time it was time for him to pile in, everything around him was dead. And the Demon Prince piled in, he did a fair few attacks and wounds as well. So that was really impressive. I like the way that worked. And I've got a really strong feeling that Blood Crushers are my new favourite unit. But we'll see. Alright, we're going to get in Dirk's turn fucking 2. Wow, this is only turn 2. So much shit's dying.
So Tau, turn 2. I had to fall back with a few units, the Fire Warriors, the Broadsides, the other Pathfinders. They weren't in combat. And then I just had to try to sort of pick some targets. I lit up with marker lights the Mauler Fiend that was there. I had 5 marker lights from my Pathfinders that needed 5s to hit because they moved, and I got 5 hits. So they benefited. Yeah, that was a huge bonus. Ghost Kill got a Melter in, but he rolled pretty hot on his invuns. But fortunately, my Riptide was able to cause enough damage and blow him up, which caused mortal wounds on the Broadside, some Fire Warriors, and his own Mauler Fiend. So yeah, happy with that. Then I killed the Bloodletters that were here, shot at them with the Commander and also the Riptide Smart Missiles.
And then you charged them.
Oh yeah, and then I charged them, and there was 2 left, but I killed enough to make them fail their morale check, so they just died. And that's the end of my turn. So the rest of the stuff's, I couldn't really fire a lot of things because they fell back.
Yep. Interesting thing to also add was that you had to consolidate towards me. So at the end, you can't, charge something and then consolidate away.
Yep.
If you're in combat, you have to keep coming at it. You got to keep going in. So
yeah, so be careful, Tau players.
Yeah, it's instinctive to go, I'm going to consolidate the fuck away from you.
Yeah. Still thinking monstrous creatures are decent in close combat, but with no AP from what we can see on the monstrous creatures for the Ghost Kills and Riptides, they're okay in close combat as long as they're not against something that's decent in close combat.
Unfortunately, the Zerkers are fucking ages away, so they're not going to really contribute, but we'll see. We'll jump into my turn.
Yep.
Alrighty guys, we've just finished up a pretty brutal turn for the Chaos. So we had the Berserkers attempted a 10-inch charge over here into the Pathfinders, but failed. Then we had the Demon Prince jumped over this piece of terrain and charged the Crisis Suits. Cleared over the Broadsides, over the terrain, and charged the Crisis Suits. The Lord charged the Broadsides. The Mauler Fiend charged the Fireblade and the Pathfinders. Now this is a sort of an interesting change from 7th edition. Was that in 7th edition it was generally considered a rule that a single model could only ever engage a single enemy unit. You couldn't multi-charge with a single model. But in this edition, if you can get within 1 inch of an enemy model, you're engaged. So what I was able to do was declare my charge on both units, charge into the Pathfinders, but that brought me to within 1 inch of the Fireblade as well, so he was also engaged, and I was also able to allocate attacks to him. So that's a bit of an interesting change, and it's a bit of a buff for your single unit models, because it allows them to, if you place them right and position it well, you can multi-charge. Then we had the Blood Crushers over here charged in as well. So I lost a couple Blood Crushers to Overwatch, but no big deal there. I think I lost maybe 1 hull point off the Mauler Fiend.
2. I think he lost 2.
1 or 2.
One more hull point, but he heals 1 now.
Yes, he'll heal 1 at the start of my turn. Then... Oh, well, this is the start of your turn.
You would have done it.
Yeah. But yeah, pretty savage combat. The Lord with his chain fist with the -4 to rend and doing 2 damage with every wound, he was able to drop 2 broadsides, which is pretty good. The Demon Prince is an absolute beast. He's just doing really good work. So yeah, that pretty much covers off my turn. I'm pretty happy with the look of the table now, because all he's really got is the Skyray with no missiles left, and a couple of big guys over there. But he has got the super fast commander, so he can fuck off and take out cultists if he wants. And then it's going to be, yeah, it'll be interesting. So we'll jump into turn, 3 for the tower?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll get right back to you.
So Tau turn 3, Morphine got blown up by the Ghost Kill. It didn't explode, unfortunately. I was hoping to do some mortal wounds on them. Killed the Blood Crushers, thanks to the commander, which left the Riptide to fire into the Terminator commander. He hit really well and wounded really well, but you made a few saves, but he's only got 1 wound left. And
so you'll probably take him down with Overwatch, I'd imagine.
Hopefully. So yeah, it's pretty even. You got the Khorne Berserkers over there. So pretty much.
Any highlights from the edition change? It was kind of interesting because you wanted to target him, but you had to shoot them first.
Yeah, I had to shoot. You have to really be picky with what you're shooting with. The Riptide being able to activate with not having to roll, but taking wounds. So he's been slowly losing wounds each turn. But overall, I thought Tau's shooting would be worse after reading the Codex, but it's not as bad as I first thought. But we'll go into turn 4.
Turn 4 is completed. So we had the Lord moved over this way and wiped out the remaining Pathfinders and then consolidated towards the tank. The Berserkers finally made it into combat and absolutely vaped the Pathfinders. Unfortunately, they killed them in their first round of attacks, so they didn't get to make their second round. That being said, we did discuss it a little bit, and we think they'd be pretty powerful if you charged a gun line, because you can wipe out the first unit, then consolidate and then attack the next unit, so you get that extra row of damage. So they'd have to bubble wrap themselves twice if they want to stop your Berserkers, which is pretty fucking savage. Also, they did do a fair bit of damage, like with those chain axes being strength 6. That's fairly brutal to anything that's not a Marine. So
yep.
And then the Demon Prince came over here and he put, 4 wounds? 3 wounds?
4 wounds. I saved 2 and a drone sacrificed itself.
Yeah. But he was doing 2 damage with every wound that went through. So we put a fair bit of damage on the Ghost Kill there.
Yep.
I was more concerned about the Ghost Kill because he's got the potential to do D6 wounds, which can be pretty powerful. So
you have knocked him down to a lower...
Yeah. So now, since he's taken damage, he's now hitting me on 5s. So that's pretty good. But I do still have 3 big monsters there to deal with, and I've only got 1 Demon Prince. So yeah, we'll see what happens now. But I did actually use the Demon Prince to engage both the Riptide and the...
But they can fly away without any
yeah,
negatives.
So they're going to have to fly away.
With no negatives, though.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Stupid Tau. Tau gonna Tau. But yeah, so we'll jump into turn 4 for the Tau. Can't believe it's only turn 4.
So Tau was able to take out the 2 HQs. Ghost Kill whiffed because he was hitting on 5s. He wasn't able to get through, but the Riptide, excuse me, his burst cannon doing 2 damage when it was overcharged, was able to do a couple of wounds. Even the smart missiles thing did a couple of wounds. So he had 3 wounds left.
Yeah, you took 1 wound at the start of the game earlier, and so he had 7 wounds left at the start of this turn.
Yep. Yeah, so I caused 4 wounds by the Riptide, and then it came down to the commander, and he fired a missile that did D3 damage, and was able to cause 3 wounds with that 1 missile, which wiped out the Demon Prince. And then the smart missiles from the Skyray took the last wound off the Terminator Lord. He had 5 saves to make and he failed 1. So that was pretty close. So we've got cultists that have been hiding back there the whole game, and the Khorne berserkers.
Cultists gonna cult.
So we've got 2 objectives each at the moment, and we're going into Chaos turn 5.
Alrighty guys, so we have my turn 5. Basically, it's unfortunate for me because the berserkers are outside of charge range, and I don't want to jump out into the open, leave this objective behind, and risk the game ending, so they're going to hold. And same deal for the cultists. That being said, I'm going to move the cultists just so that they're on that objective a bit more. But other than that, I'm not going to do much movement. And knowing that the Tau have to pretty much stay where they are in order to hold those objectives, it's just going to boil down to, can he shoot me off of that objective? So we'll see how he goes.
So game over. Tau was able to shoot the berserkers off that objective, so now I currently hold 2 to the cultists, 1. So that's a victory to the Tau.
Yep. It was interesting the way we saw berserkers in cover, and the way having power armor in cover gives it a 2-up save, but then the way that interacts with the rend meant that often they were only getting a 4 or a 5-up save. So it kind of almost worked out in a way similar defensively to previous cover.
It basically took all 3 of my units to kill them.
It did take it was pretty good. I was pretty happy with it.
So yeah, I think Marines in cover are going to be pretty hard to dislodge.
Yeah, especially if you don't have rend. Anything without rend is not removing a Marine from cover.
Yeah. So as Warhammer said, they said that they needed to have weapons that do the ultimate choice to shoot what they think will be best. So infantry to kind of shoot infantry, or if they're in cover, you got to use your weapons carefully.
Yeah, it's the same as you were shooting some stuff at the Demon Princes and the Maulafines at one stage that didn't do multiple damage. And it was like, they might take off 1 wound here or there, but when you got 12, who cares?
Yep.
So you really need to have the things that do D6 or D3 damage targeting vehicles, and then stuff with lots of shots targeting infantry.
Yep.
Even though the things with lots of shots can still technically hurt vehicles, it's not a very efficient way to do it.
So yeah, looking back over it,
what's your highlight? What's your favourite thing about
7th?
Fuck 7th.
For 8th edition,
having experienced it now and played it out, what was your highlight?
I do like it feels more realistic. I don't like I like that there's not much super cheese of that we know of, but I think having multiple independent characters and all that sort of shit, tanking shots and everything, I think that was fucked in 7th edition. I like that it's a bit more realistic now. HQ choices, you can hide them in behind units.
The HQ targeting was interesting, and I think that almost took away from the realism, because there was one point where my Terminator Lord was here, but because you had somebody else slightly closer, you had to target them, and it's like, anyone with half a brain would be like, hey look, their boss is in the fucking open, quick, get him. So that took maybe a little bit away, but it added a lot to the strategy and the tactics, so I'm okay with that. Highlight for me would probably be the way the deployment and the turn went. You only have 1 roll.
Yep.
You roll off to see who places the objectives first, and then you place your objectives. Whoever places the last one picks deployment, picks their zone, then you start deploying units, alternating. Whoever deploys their...
If you know how many... Before you roll off, if you know how many units your opponent has, might make a bit of a strategy of where you put the objectives, so that you force your opponent to say, oh shit, there's 4 objectives in that one half. I've got to deploy there. But that was the other person's plan all along, seeing that he knew he was going to go either first or second.
Yeah. And I was actually thinking about it. So there's the interesting strategy of going, okay, I'm going to take less models, less units, so that I'm more likely to get first turn. But I think that also works the other way. You could take shitloads of units and take a really reserve-heavy army, because you kind of want second turn with that army. So I think that people will play it both ways. But I just really like the way it was just, you do that 1 roll off, and then you just go, start playing. None of this fucking roll, okay, now you do your thing, now I roll, then you do your thing, and then I roll. picking your powers, you know, all the pre-game stuff that you have to fuck around with. There's none of that now.
The multiple wounds damage is pretty cool.
Yep.
Obviously, yeah, once again, you got to really pick what you're going to shoot at. Because, yeah, as Dean said, shooting like little things at a big monstrous creature or a vehicle, you're going to cause maybe 1 wound and waste 30 shots or something like that to cause that 1 wound. So, yeah, picking your targets is real key. We spent a lot of time off camera deciding what we're going to shoot at because there's so many split fire things to do. Well, I did because I was the one with all the shooting and everything was in my face.
There was situations there where you've got one guy that's got 3 different guns and you're like, okay, what are my chances of taking off that last hull point off of that Mauler Fiend? Fuck, I need to fire this at that, so then I'll fire, you know, a lot of that. So I think people will get better at that with more experience. I did find the vehicles interesting. I liked having like 12 wounds or hull points because previously every time you lost a wound or a hull point you were like, fuck, it's gonna die, whereas now it's like, yeah, you just took 3 wounds off my Mauler Fiend, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
You know, he's still coming at you just as fast, just as hard. You weren't stressed about, are they gonna immobilize me, fuck, or are they gonna take away my power fists, or, you know, like, no weapon destroyed results, none of that. No shaken and stunned. We
were talking about it off camera as well, that vehicles and sort of monstrous creatures that have less than 10 wounds don't suffer from that minus or the damaged sort of table, which is, I'll be interested to see how those sort of units go.
I think that's almost a sweet spot, is the vehicles and monstrous creatures that are lower than 10 wounds.
Yep.
Because they're at full effectiveness
for the whole game. Yeah, that Demon Prince, you know, I took him down a bit, but he was
fully effective until he's dead. Whereas, you know, other units, they get worse. But then again, by the time the Mauler Fiends got to the stage where they were worse, they were already in combat. They were already doing what they need to do. So I didn't necessarily feel any negative effects from them once they started experiencing negative effects.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, maybe that's because they were in combat with Tau. You know, if they were in combat with another Mauler Fiend, then I'd be like, fuck, you're hitting me on 4s and I'm hitting you on 5s, this is crap, you know, or whatever. So, you know, I fucking loved it.
Yep, yeah, good.
One of the most enjoyable games of 40k I've had in a long time.
Yeah. It was it was really topsy-turvy. I honestly was almost ready to concede turn 1 when Terminator's deep striked in and we were able to assault. That's
one thing that I do want to touch on, was that I think this edition is bad for combat armies. And the reason I say that is because your opponent can voluntarily move out of combat in their movement phase, it means you don't get to strike them again in their turn. So not only do they get to walk away and then shoot you with everything, but previously you'd charge them, you'd do some damage in your turn, then in their turn you'd do some more damage, then in your turn you do some more damage, whereas now you're only getting that 1 round. And also, you don't get any additional attacks on the turns you charge. So, that's like a double nerf for combat armies.
Yep.
So, and I'm not seeing any massive boons for combat armies. Even things like Blood Crushers, they're even slower now.
Yeah.
You know, so they made units slower and worse. Like, yeah, combat, when they do make combat, they fuck shit up. Like, those Juggernauts were doing serious damage. That Demon Prince was doing serious
How much
damage.
were the Juggernauts?
Like 50 points each.
So you had 6 of them, so you're a 300-point squad.
Yeah, which is pretty rough.
I think they were pretty good, though.
Yeah, definitely. 6 attacks on the charge is pretty good. And I guess one of the other things is that if your opponent does keep falling back, you're going to always be getting the charge. So you're always going to get to go first.
Yeah.
Whereas I guess that's part of the incentive to not fall back, is if you stay locked in, then you get to go first.
Yep.
With some of the units, you know. But all in all,
good close game.
Yeah, good game.
Yeah, it came down to the wire.
Hope you guys enjoyed it. Chuck a comment below with the not only what you think of the game and the armies and the topics we've discussed, but also what are your favourite things about 8th edition? What are you looking forward to the most? And what sort of units, particularly Khorne units, because I've got access to almost all of them, so what sort of units do you want to see in the next battle report? Just chuck a comment below, and we'll get it done. Alright, thanks guys.
See ya.
Walk for the blood god.